Hi, Dr. Dean. Dr. Mitchell is joining us momentarily. I am resending her the Zoom information.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, we're going to get started in a minute. We get started regardless of what the attendance is, because so many watch on YouTube now, and so many watch it with that it goes out with our newsletter. So we just start and
Okay, no worries. We're here to do the job.
but I am waiting for a few people to show. Okay. So we're going to get started in 1 second though.
Okay, no worries. We're here.
Okay, I'm going to come on camera in a second too.
Mhm.
Okay, hello, welcome to the W7EC Ed Council. We really appreciate you coming. Today, we also put all our videos on YouTube, and we also sent out the link at our newsletter. And quite frankly, since we started doing that, we get less and less people coming to the actual meeting and more just watching it when they're available. So with that being said, we would like to get started and just acknowledge that this is toward the end of Women's History Month 2025. And the theme this year for Women's History Month was moving forward together, which I think is a very appropriate theme for our times. The agenda today is a recap of the Getting to the Root event we had last night. It was an excellent event. Then we're going to hear from the esteemed Dr. Antoinette Mitchell, who's the interim state superintendent of the Office of the State Superintendent of Education. A lot of states in there, better known as OSSE. And then we'll talk about what our upcoming events will be. We will hear an update from our state board of education rep, Eboni-Rose Thompson, and a few announcements and adjournment. So with that being said, we're going to get going. So I am Marla Dean. I am the chair of the W7EC Ed Council. And we just always review our mission, which is, hold on, just moving stuff around because my screen is so crowded. So the the mission of the Ward 7 Ed Council is to organize, collaborate, and advocate to ensure high-quality, community-based public education as a matter of right for Ward 7 early childhood, pre-K, and adult learners. So we're excited about the conversation we're going to have today. We want to center our values. Our values are of equity, access, health and equity, joy, and responsiveness. And our goals are always continue to be the same because we're continue to pursue them. That all Ward 7 learners deserve high quality education at a school they are entitled to attend based on their residency. That Ward 7 provides schools that are the preferred destination for Ward 7 families, and that we establish, protect a pre-K through 12 feeder pattern in Ward 7 schools that meets the needs of the community. I want to talk about last night. Last night was a fabulous night at the Strand. We had our second iteration of Getting to the Root on February 19th. We started the series with Diminished Returns, the Black Wealth Gap in Washington, D.C. We had a documentary. We heard from the documentarian, the executive producer, and we also heard, Timmy F. Bennett, and we also heard from Dr. Perry, who brought us a lot of data around what is going on with the wealth gap here in Washington, D.C. Dr. Perry is of Brookings Institute. Then last night, we had a very full agenda. We went very late, well over time. We heard from Kimberly Perry, Executive Director of DC Action. She brought us the DC Kids Count report. She brought us Ward 7 specific data, took us through that data, let us know where the trends were, where we were making progress, where we were stagnant, and where we were seeing regression. We also heard from Ericka Williams, Executive Director of DC Fiscal Policy Institute, and the two of them together talked about their proposal for a youth jobs guarantee for those youth who are farthest away, as our mayor says, farthest away from opportunity, and wanted to really discuss that, receive feedback, and talk about what that could actually produce for our young people in our community. We also had a fireside chat with Eboni-Rose Thompson, our award state board rep, and she gave us great insight into how to navigate the complex network of agencies that impact Ward 7. And unfortunately, our council member has to reschedule, so he was not able to attend. But we did hear from our community panelists who really talked about their experiences in the ward, what they think will work, and how we should move forward. So we're really appreciative to Rahman Branch, CEO of East River Family Strengthening Collaborative, Christina Jones, president of the Elsie Stokes East End PTA, and Ebbon Allen, who is a very strong advocate for Black boys and a former Ward 7 ANC commissioner. Unfortunately, one of our panelists could not make it, St. Hugh Culver, because he is, experiencing a significant tragedy in his own family. So we want to hold him up in esteem and lift him as he goes through probably one of the most trying incidents in his life. And then we also we were scheduled to have our April 23rd Health and Health Equity conversation about the social and structural determinants of health. However, we're postponing it because our colleague Ambrose Lane has suffered a major health setback, a major medical incident. And because he is the champion of all things health in Ward 7 and east of the river, we did not feel it appropriate to continue to have that program without him and his ability to attend and help plan for it. So we will look for a date in the near future once Ambrose has fully recovered, and we will have that the third and last of our Getting to the Root series. Really want to thank Dr. Antoinette Mitchell for coming to us this morning and giving us a real understanding of the process of examining graduation requirements, and why do we do that every so often? What is the purpose? What goes into it? How are decisions made? All the things that we would like to know about and that you can share with us. Dr. Mitchell, this is the first time I've been in space with you, even though it's virtual. And well, not actually, I've actually been in a room with you, but this is the first time I've actually had an opportunity to really speak with you. And just a little bit about myself. I am a former high school principal. And so I know a little bit about getting young people to the finish line and launching them to the next stage of their life. So we're really excited to have you come and talk to us about this process. And we just enter into a dialogue around what this means for our community and why it's an important conversation to be aware of. Without any further ado, if you would like to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you and anything else you want to say as opening comments, and then we can go right to what you would like us to know about today.
Great, great, great. Thank you so much, Dr. Dean. It is an absolute pleasure for me to be here tonight and to have the opportunity to talk with you. I want to share first that I am here with two colleagues from OSSE, Dr. Shamir Jones and Dr. Brianna Bostic. They will be supporting me as I go through the PowerPoint presentation, and I'm so thankful that they are joining us tonight as well. Now I'll tell you a little bit about me. I am actually a DC native, born and raised right here in Washington, DC. Grew up in Mount Pleasant, went to Deal, Bancroft Elementary School, Deal, and then Wilson, now Jackson Reed. Absolutely love the city. My mom was a teacher in the city for 33 years, I think. And my dad worked at what used to be Oak Hill, Cedar Knoll. And I have 6 older brothers and sisters, and together we pretty much knew everybody in the city as a family. I have worked professionally in the city for the vast amount of my career. I started off as a secondary social studies teacher, taught at Aand Junior High School, where Princess Whitfield was our leader and principal. I have been a researcher at the Urban Institute. And so many of the activities and events that you just listed as a part of the Roots series seem so interesting to me. What a robust group of sessions that you had, and some that I would love to attend. So thank you for that. In addition to being a researcher, my background also includes having served as an accreditor of teacher education for about 10 years. I was the dean of the School of Education at Trinity, and then I landed here at OSSE. And this is a dream job for me because it's nothing like walking in your purpose. And I feel that education is definitely my purpose. I believe that it addresses some of the very issues that you were speaking about earlier in terms of root causes, poverty, things like that. And just the opportunity to support all of the wonderful educators that are here in the city, trying as best we can to uplift the students and help their futures be bright and to help all the students really achieve their potential. So I am delighted to be here with you this evening and looking very forward to talking to you about the graduation requirements. Uh,
I'm so excited to meet you and to learn that well, I think I had heard that you were a Native Washingtonian, and I think it's really important that we center Native Washingtonians. And so excited to hear all that you have done and that you continue to do in this space. So great, excellent, really excited about that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Dr. Jones and I have been on a journey for the last year and a half, taking a look at our high school graduation requirements. This is an initiative that grew out of OSSE's strategic plan for 2023 through 2025. And we felt that the graduation requirements have not been seriously considered for a number of years. I think the last significant change was in 2016. We all know that our students are different. The world has changed, and we really need to find some ways to engage students in schooling in a way that they are not currently engaged. And one way to do that is to take a look at what we're requiring of our high school students. We began the journey by creating what we call a graduate profile. And that was the opportunity to step back and think as a community about what the ideal high school graduate looks like. And we were able to identify 7 characteristics that we were able to amass based on a ton of outreach that we did in the community with everybody from students to activists to administrators, politicians, you name it, we were talking to them, came up with this profile, and then we launched the graduation work. We have done a ton of additional outreach, and we now have a proposal. We are shopping the proposal around, sharing it as broadly as we can, collecting as much feedback as we can to this proposal. And once we do that at the end of the spring, beginning of the summer, we'll amass all of the information that we have, make some changes, and then begin working with the school State Board of Education, because the State Board of Education is the entity that has to approve any new high school requirements. And we think we'll be working with them for about a year to ensure that we address all of their concerns so that they're comfortable passing new graduation requirements.
Absolutely. So before you get into your presentation, is there a link or is there somewhere that official feedback or anything that people can share who are not in the room but will view this? Is there a way to ask questions, give feedback, or any of those things?
Absolutely. So we will share the PowerPoint presentation with you so that everyone will have the entire PowerPoint presentation. At the end is information sheet that has my email address, Dr. Jones's email address, where you can send all your questions. And in addition to that, we'll be standing up a survey on the OSSE website that will enable everybody to share information.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay.
All right, let's get started.
Okay. I think your team is ready.
Great.
I need screen sharing permissions.
I need your co-host, but you're still not being able to.
Permission.
Okay, that's weird. Okay, you should have it now.
Thank you. Dr. Jones, would you like to go through the initial slides?
Sure.
Let's calibrate on time. How much time do we have to share the PowerPoint?
We usually give about 30 minutes for these types of presentations. Is that enough?
That's fine. That'll work just fine. Okay, Dr. Jones.
Okay, wonderful. Brianna, thanks so much for landing on the agenda. So as Dr. Mitchell shared during today's discussion, we're going to provide an update on the final DC graduate profile. Then we're going to move into the discussion on the vision for the proposed graduation requirements recommendations. And then we will conclude with any questions that you all may have. Next slide, please. So you all may be familiar with OSSE's Reimagining High School Graduations Requirements initiative. Some of you on this call I know have contributed to past conversations that we've had to get this work to this point. As a reminder, this work consists of two components, and Dr. Mitchell spoke about both of them. The first was the development of the inaugural DC graduate profile, and the second is the process that we're currently undergoing, which is to collect feedback for the amendments of the current graduation requirements. And so in order to get us to where we are today with this work, Dr. Mitchell spoke about the extensive research efforts that we engaged in. So that included 50 state scans, school district level, and LEA level scans, as well as extensive engagement efforts with a variety of DC stakeholders. In early 2024, we solicited feedback on the initial draft of the profile, and we started to seek out recommendations regarding what DC stakeholders really valued as areas of change for the current graduation requirements. And since then, we've continued our research on both of these components through additional targeted desk research, continuing the listening sessions just like this one today. We've also surveyed high school administrators as well as the public. And Dr. Dean, you asked for additional ways that feedback can be provided. So separate from the dedicated email account that we have set up for this, we will have on our Reimagining High School Graduations website another public survey being launched soon. We're also going to have a spring general public feedback session for all DC stakeholders to come together to talk to OSSE and give us their good feedback.
Okay.
And just in advance, we want to thank you all for your contributions today. Brianna, we can advance the slide, please. So I put in the chat a link to the current DC graduate profile, but just as a recap, the profile has a student-centered approach. It articulates a set of academic, personal, and interpersonal characteristics that all high school students should attain in advance of graduation. It also sets clear expectations for college and career readiness for students and family, and it also serves as a North Star for alignment across OSSE as a state agency with LEAs as well as policymakers. Brianna, next slide, please. So Dr. Mitchell spoke about the 7 key characteristic areas that encompass the DC profile. So you will see them here: critical thinking and problem solving, social, emotional, and physical well-being, global and local citizenship, learner agency, communication and collaboration, information media and technology literacy, as well as foundational knowledge and skills. And each one of those characteristics is accompanied by an indicator statement that explains what it is a student would need to master in order to meet proficiency within that characteristic. What you don't see here, but what is included in the link in the chat, is a set of additional competencies. So each one of the characteristics has about 5 to 7 competencies that accompany it, that details based upon either DC standards or national standards, or what the key observational areas are that a student would be able to demonstrate in order to meet that characteristic. And so the next phase of this work is focused on developing and working with DC educators on what school level resources would really be needed in order for school level, LEA level personnel to be able to use the DC graduate profile in the classroom. So that's our next steps. Brianna, next slide, please. So as shared earlier by Dr. Mitchell, OSSE has engaged in a number of quantitative and qualitative research activities leading to the proposed graduation requirements recommendations. We wanted to share some of the major themes that we heard from our 2023-2024 listening session tour, as well as the public feedback session, public feedback survey that we administered. We're on the next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So during 2023-2024, we conducted roughly 30 listening sessions across stakeholder groups. So that was inclusive of college and career readiness experts, leadership at local universities. We also had very pointed and rich conversations with the State Board of Education. We also, in partnership with the Deputy Mayor of Education staff, visited 16 DC high schools across the respective wards. We wanted to center students' voices in this work and thought that that was really critically important. And so one of the major themes that emerged from the various public feedback sessions regarding the graduation requirements was centered on the possibility of course substitutions. So later on in this presentation, Dr. Mitchell will talk a little bit more about what that looks like, but some of the areas that were brought up as consideration for course substitutions were subjects like science, math, social studies, and then also sports. Another component that emerged was surrounding possibly having additional courses to help prepare students for independence after high school. So the development of a financial literacy course or a post-secondary preparation course. Next slide, please, Brianna. So we've included a few quotes here just to illustrate additional themes that emerged during our feedback sessions. Themes focused on the favorability of increasing flexibility, also maintaining and increasing advanced placement in dual enrollment opportunities, ensuring alignment of the proposed graduation requirements revisions with college admissions requirements. And as an aside, we did conduct a research analysis on the top 25 institutions of higher education's admissions requirements for DC tag recipients during the academic year of 2023 to help influence our work. Feedback also was centered on having an in-depth examination on the number of community service hours, also consideration for outside of the classroom activities and what credits could look like for areas inclusive of internships or service learning activities. Next slide, please, Brianna. We have included this slide to illustrate the top recommendations related to the graduation requirements that we received from the public feedback survey that we administered in the summer and early fall of 2024. The N was 616. I just want to call out, though, that respondents did have the opportunity to select multiple options when responding. And so you'll see that course substitutions, endorsement options, alternative ways to demonstrate competency, and altering the community service hours were ranked highest. Brianna, next slide, please. And so here I will turn it over to Dr. Mitchell for a discussion on the graduation requirements.
Thank you so much. So I mentioned earlier that our graduation requirements have not changed significantly since 2016. These are our current requirements, and you can see that we are very much on a Carnegie scale. We have Carnegie units, and our students have to take 4 Carnegie units in English, 4 in mathematics, and those must include Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 at a minimum, 4 in Science, and 4 in Social Studies. And in Social Studies, in science, let me go back to the Science. In Science, 3 of the sciences have to, 3 of the 4 units in Science have to be lab sciences. And in social studies, it's pretty laid out in terms of students having to complete US history, World History 1, World History 2, and then government and civics. Moving down the list, we also have a world language requirement where students are required to complete 2 units or 2 years of language. We have art and music at 0.5 or 1 semester. We have physical education and health. That's 1.5, which totals about a year and a half. And then there are electives. In addition to that, there is a requirement that students complete 100 hours of community service. So we began our understanding of proposals for new graduation requirements, thinking about all of the themes that Dr. Jones just mentioned, flexibility and course substitution, the things that would further engage students in their education in ways that would be supportive of more students completing high school and doing it in a way that sort of fed their interest and gave them an idea about what they wanted to do moving forward. Next slide, please. So some of the guiding vision that is a part of the proposed requirements that we have, that guiding vision includes this notion that we want to maintain the idea of 1 diploma in the District of Columbia, but we wanted to introduce some endorsement options so students could distinguish the studies that they have been engaged in. We also wanted to really embrace this notion of post-secondary planning. That is, we want high school students to think about what's next, what career options are out there. And in order to do that, we have some suggestions that I'm so curious to hear your comments on. And we also want to embrace experiential learning. That is, to get students in real world situations where they're able to experience the curricula in ways that are different from sitting at a desk with a teacher in the front of the room. We want to get kids outside of the school and into, again, real world experiences. We also are very interested in ensuring that whatever is next for our students is top of mind as students are going through their courses and being prepared. And so we want to make sure that every student is ready for college and or some other type of training that will enable them to earn a living and fulfill their passions. And then finally, we want to definitely explore course flexibility and course substitutions. We think this is important because as students move through high school, they sort of get a feel for the areas in which they are being pulled, the areas in which they are interested and most likely to move forward in. And so we want to make sure that students can substitute courses wherever possible. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the proposed requirements are divided into 3 big categories. The first category is just post-secondary and career readiness. One of the things that we think we should do, and this is new, slightly new, the requirements right now require a post-secondary plan, but we'd like to enhance that requirement by saying that students have to meet with a counselor or college and career readiness advisor at the school at least 3 times beginning in the 9th grade. That is, we would like to see that our students have touch points with an adult in the school focused on what's next. What do you want to do after high school and what courses do you need to take? What experiences do you need to have in high school to get you ready for the next step? Another area under this category is the capstone project. We think that it will be very advantageous for our students to have the opportunity to identify an area of study and to go deep into that area and to create a project that requires a synthesis of a lot of different information, a lot of different disciplines, and then share what they have learned in a creative way with their school community. So the capstone project would also be a requirement. Another big area of consideration for the draft of the new requirements is around endorsement options. We think that students who pursue a particular number of courses in a given area and are successful should have that work recognized through an endorsement on their diploma. And so we've identified 3 areas that students could decide that they want to go for it and get this endorsement. One area is career and technical education. We have career and technical education programs of study. Those are 3 or more concurrent courses in a particular area of career and technical education. In most of the high school, I would say all of the high schools have at least some CTE. And so if a student wanted to pursue an endorsement on their diploma, they could take a series of CTE courses. Often that is inclusive of work-based learning experiences, as well as a certification of some sort. And if a student successfully completes a program of study in career and technical education, then they could get an endorsement on their diploma that distinguishes them from other graduates. Similarly, another endorsement option is AP and dual enrollment. A student could take a series of AP and/or dual enrollment courses, and as long as the student maintains a certain GPA, 2.5 GPA, scores a 3 or higher on the AP courses, then that student could also earn an endorsement on his or her diploma. And students pursuing an IB track, which is a particular set of courses that is particularly rigorous. We think that a student that is able to maintain a B in an IB track could also receive an endorsement on his or her diploma. And then finally, an individualized option, because maybe a student is really interested in an area that maybe not CTE, maybe not necessarily dual enrollment or AP, but maybe it's community gardening or the environment or something like that. And if a student works with an advisor at the school and can pull together some coursework, maybe some independent study, and be recognized for that work, then we say let's go for it. And the whole notion of endorsement options is created to give students the opportunity to choose an area of study and then to do coursework in that particular area of study, thus hopefully increasing their engagement with school and perhaps getting a taste of what it is they want to do moving forward. Next slide, please. And the last area on our proposed graduation requirements has to do with core foundational knowledge. And it's because this foundational knowledge remains of the utmost importance. And so we have thought about what do kids really need in order to master some foundational knowledge in the core subject areas. So we think that in terms of Carnegie units, 4 units of English still absolutely required. We think that mathematics continues to be important, particularly in our society. The mathematics requirement as it stands right now includes Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. We'd like to open up the Algebra 2 requirement and say that a student should take Algebra 2 or an integrated math course of some type. We think that students might be interested in a more hands-on math, maybe statistics, could be computer science, could be anything that, it could just be another math course. I think Algebra 2 is incredibly important for individuals that are interested in a STEM career, but we know that everyone isn't interested in STEM. And so we want to just open up that requirement to enable a little bit more choice. Then for science, the requirements as they stand right now would require 3 lab sciences. We think that 3 sciences is sufficient, and which would take away one of the sciences. But also we think that maybe if we say biology is a requirement, but allow students to have some choice in the other types of science that they might be interested in. And so we're making that recommendation. Social studies, currently the requirement is 4 units of social studies. We think that we could do 3 units of social studies and prepare students for the world in really neat ways. We would not touch the language requirement, the art, music, and health and physical education requirements, though there has been some advocacy for allowing students who play a varsity sport to get credit for physical education, to allow students who can speak a language, understand a language, speak and comprehend and read a language, to test out of some of the language requirement units. We also heard very clearly that people think that financial literacy is important and should be a high school graduation requirement. And so we would add a unit, a half unit course, a semester long course in financial literacy. We've heard that people are very interested in ensuring that students know all of the career options that are available, and that they have some computer literacy, that they understand the world of work. And so we're suggesting a 0.5 course in career preparation. We wouldn't want to change the total amount of units necessary, and consequently, the electives would move from 3.5 to 4.5. And we would reduce the number of community service hours from 100 to 60, recognizing that students lead very busy lives and many students have to work. And in that vein, we would change the title of this from community service to community engagement. And that way, if students were somehow compensated for the hours that they were pursuing this particular requirement, that will be fine. The only other change that we are proposing is around our students with special needs. We are proposing that students, qualifying students with an IEP, when they complete that IEP, individualized education plan, currently they receive a certificate. We think that those students should receive a diploma. And we have an alternative state diploma that we think that we could put in place. And so we'd like to do that. And those, in a nutshell, are the proposals that we put on the table for the high school graduation requirements. And at this point, we are all ears. Want to hear what you have to say.
Well, thank you. And really appreciate the work behind this. And I do have some questions to best understand. So this shift seems like it has made a shift more toward specialization than generalization in terms of the overall requirements. So I'm wondering, how do we balance career preparedness and also still the very important goal of education of preparing a citizenry in a democratic nation?
I so appreciate the question. I don't know that I agree with the premise, though.
Okay.
Because we think that the endorsements are options and not requirements, so that A student could go through high school, go through the core foundational knowledge and not have to choose the specialization. That is something that they could do on top of to just enhance their interest and engagement with the school. In terms of the core courses, I think rather than specialization, we're trying to open it up. We're trying to say, yes, math is incredibly important. There are some very foundational courses that you need, geometry, algebra 1, and you need another math, but it doesn't have to be algebra 2, right? Because if I'm interested in a health career, then maybe there's a math for me that is not so theoretical. If I'm interested in, if I'm an artist, then maybe that particular math is not important to me, and there's a different math that's important to me. So, but if I'm interested in science, I want to be engineer or anything in STEM, then absolutely algebra 2 is the way to go. So I think it's just recognizing and trying to be open about where students are and what their interests might be.
So I appreciate that your frame, the frame here is engagement. And that's really what you're trying to increase. And so I can see that as a way to frame this too. So I can acknowledge that. I'm really glad you didn't decide to allow for computer science to substitute for a world language. We live in a global world. I want to make sure that's true, right? I know that was one of the points. Okay, but there isn't any required computer science course here. And I wonder, in a world with AI, and so much misinformation and disinformation, how are we going to address those issues with our young people?
What a great question. I can tell you that we had a lot of back and forth with many of the stakeholders around that. Our new social studies standards have a civic engagement course, and I think that there is some information around technological literacy there.
Okay.
I think that in addition to that, the graduate profile that we have developed, one of the 7 characteristics is information and digital literacy.
Right.
And so still working out how to weave that into schooling in general. Certainly in the career preparation course, we thought that we would hit that very topic as well. So we think that that topic is so central that it's going to be integrated through many of the courses that students take. But we definitely heard some folks thinking about computer science. And I guess computer science is a little bit different from digital literacy, but the conversation has definitely been top of mind, especially with AI and all of the changes that are foreseen with it coming on board.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. One question around, it doesn't seem like there was a shift away from Carnegie units per se. Will there be any opportunities for students to accelerate, test out, or any of those, since Carnegie units are still the basis of this diploma sequence?
Gosh, you're just hitting on all of the important topics. Your high school principal is coming out. Yes, competency-based education is a really important change in the way that we do education. And we have talked about course substitutions, but as well as the ability for students to demonstrate what they know, and perhaps not have to spend so much time in a course. And so one of the things that we hope to do is to write something in the requirements encouraging local education agencies, teachers, and schools to apply for a waiver perhaps, so that they could experiment with this. Competency-based education is, how do I say this? It is a significant change and requires a great deal of work to ensure that students are seriously demonstrating their competence. And so we want to encourage that. The closest that we get here is really encouraging project-based learning, particularly through that capstone experience. We thought that if everybody knows they have to do a capstone experience at the end of high school, folks would begin preparing students through problem-based learning and project-based learning all the way through. But yeah, we are anticipating including some encouragement for competency-based education. And you know, the notion that a student could maybe take a comprehensive exam and test out of some courses is definitely encouraged.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you talking about a capstone project. I do think students need to have opportunity to integrate their learning and to have real world application of their learning. I think it also deepens engagement. Only a couple more questions for you. So health and physical ed, there's a consideration that if you participated in varsity sports, you should get credit for that. I wonder why. Why not just sports at all? Because is it about being a varsity sports person, or is it about being a healthy person? And I won, when I was in high school, we won't talk about what decade that was, but when I was in high school, we won Class A state championship in my state. But I'm gonna tell you, as a varsity person, but my freshman year on JV was very tough. And so I'm wondering, does it really matter the kind of level, but more the kind of skill and hard work and dedication that you learn, and how you learn about your body and all those types of things is more important.
What a great point. I don't know that has been raised in any of the sessions that we have had, but just the logic of what you just said makes a lot of sense to me. So I think that's something we can definitely think about, because you're absolutely right.
And then my final question before we go to our participants, our attendees, you talked about AP endorsement option. Let me know, now I'm getting logistical. This is probably too in the weeds. When we think about some students taking the AP in their senior year, second semester, how will we get those scores back in time enough for them to have that endorsement? So I'm just wondering.
That is a great question. Yet another great question. We would have to think, I think the timing of when the course grades come back is, again, something we've not thought about before. Do you know when the grades come back? Because I would imagine that transcripts have to go to schools for those kids that go to college. Maybe students take the test earlier on?
Well, I think AP of all the tests do a fairly good job of getting scores back quicker than anyone else, because they understand that. But I'm just wondering, with that end of the year rush that high schools are under, adding that endorsement, I just want to bring it up as a thing to think about logistically and how that would work out. Okay. I have asked the questions and held the floor for long enough, and I have a question from Elizabeth. Elizabeth, would you please come off mute and ask your question? Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
So I had a question. Oh gosh, my lighting changed. Okay, I had a question in the chat about ASL as adding it to the world language list. And I was just curious about your thoughts about that. but I also wanted to offer some perspective after, of course, I've seen this presentation several times, but it made me think about how real world this is, because it looks more collegiate now, because we're moving towards, like, if you think about, University of Maryland Global Campus, and when you think of, all the online schools and the open courseware and thing of that nature, I feel like this is on course to like the direction that we're going when it comes to college. And that preparation of, it used to be like, certain schools only took certain credits, and, you go and you get this AP, you take these AP exams, and then you try to go to, UVA and they don't accept it, or you get your IB diploma and they don't accept the credits unless you actually have, the diploma. And I just wanted to applaud you guys with, of course, community input, but such forward thinking, because I don't think you guys realize, or you may, like, how much of a big deal this is. And it's really going to set the trajectory nationwide of what it looks like for us to create citizens that are career ready and workforce ready, right? So I just wanted to offer that acknowledgement, because I think that that's like a real thing. But again, I guess my overall question was just exploring the ASO capability, not only for children, with special needs, but thinking about, because we have Gallaudet here, we probably have the largest population of ASL speakers in the nation. And it would be great from a equity lens to be able to offer that so that we can communicate with our neighbors.
Yeah. My personal opinion is that I agree with you that ASL is absolutely a language, and to the degree possible, as a choice for the language requirement, should be included. I know I see world language and ASL is American Sign Language, and I know that other countries have sign language, which is somewhat different. But I would argue that it should be included. I'd have to go back and do some research to get some backing for that, but it makes total sense to me. Dr. Jones, what do you think?
I think that this is definitely an area that we can take back and look into. Yeah. And thank you, Elizabeth, for bringing this up.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing this up. We will certainly go back and look into this very seriously.
Are there any other questions? Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for bringing that question forward. We appreciate that. Are there other questions? Okay. Well, I have a final question.
Okay.
Economics.
Yes.
What was the discussion, if any, around economics and understanding? I know we have financial literacy, which is different than economics and understanding world markets, world systems, those types of things. And they so heavily influence the political and governmental pieces. I mean, what happens in government. So I'm wondering, what was the conversation around an economics course as a requirement?
Yeah, that is terrific. I think the notion of economics definitely came up in the discussions. We were able to point to certain concepts in the social studies standards as covering economics to some degree. And I think that was the way that we kind of thought about economics for everyone. But a lot of the opportunities, the flexibilities, that we built into this would make space if students were really interested in that particular area. We've got like a lot of courses that are available through dual enrollment that students could take. So I think it's through the social studies is the primary way that economics is being addressed. But there was some discussion, but I don't remember a lot of discussion or a big push for an economics course.
Okay. I think just wanted to kind of get a sense of where that conversation was, because I just think that again, it is an important knowledge base that young people should have. So I really want to thank you. This has been incredibly helpful, understanding the thought, the serious thought, engagement that has gone behind coming up with these proposed revisions. And we will make sure that the link that was shared will be shared with our newsletter along with this recording, and it also going up on our YouTube page so that many people can continue to weigh in on this conversation as it affects all children in K-12 at some point. They will get there. At least we believe all of them will get there. That's what we believe in Work 7.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been a lovely conversation.
Thank you. I so appreciate you, and it's been great to talk to you. And I hear your passion, and I know you care so much about DC. So I really thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night. So we just heard from our interim state superintendent, Dr. Antoinette Mitchell, and we got a lot of information about the process, the proposed high school graduation requirements, and there'll be multiple opportunities for feedback, and there were links shared, as well as there's a survey coming out where we can get even more information. I just want to talk about upcoming events. As I said earlier in the meeting, we had a great getting to the root last night. We're postponing this one due to our neighbor and colleague, Ambrose, so that he can rejoin us before we finalize the planning for the April 23rd and the final event in Getting to the Root series, which has been incredibly informative and successful. So moving on with that, I really want to share that Ward 7 Ed Council will be holding a PTO training headed by PTO president of Elsie Stokes East End and Ward 7 vice chair. It is going to be held on June 14th at Joy Evans Therapeutic Recreation Center, and we're really excited. The great strides that Christina has made at her own school's PTO, want to share some of those techniques and strategies with the entire ward. We want every school to have a strong PTO. We continue, we're starting our nominations process. If you want to nominate someone, these are the nominations committee: Ruth Eiffel-Latoyson, Sharona Robinson, and Mandala Deskins. And so please do so. We are taking nominations this month. At next month, we will provide a sample ballot. We'll have elections, and then we will also in June at our final meeting have installation of officers. This year we are having elections for vice chair, recording secretary, and parliamentarian. And now we want to bring forward our esteemed State Board of Education representative from Ward 7, who was on fire last night, and to bring forward with announcements. So it is your world.
Hello, I just want to say for the record, I was mostly hangry. But good evening, everyone. If we've not met, my name is Eboni-Rose Thompson. I do represent Ward 7 on the State Board of Education, and of course, really appreciated the conversation last night. A few things that are true about what the board has working on. I'm really glad that you all were able to hear from OSSE this evening because that work around the high school graduation requirements really is the most important work, in my opinion, that the board will be taking up over the next year. We, as a board, were engaged in the graduate profile process, and we expect that the new graduation requirements will be aligned to that. I personally feel the 7 characteristics, they really do encapsulate what students need and look forward to engaging and going through the process to come up with new high school graduation requirements. I am co-chairing the committee around with that hosts the high school graduation requirements work with Representative Henderson and Ward 5. We actually had our first committee meeting yesterday and began to discuss what that work could look like. So I look forward to coming back with updates. And we also will hear from OSSE at the April working session about this. The other thing that I think has been a bit of conversation around, which I know folks at the Ed Council have been paying attention to, is the conversation that at large Representative and President Patterson has brought up around education as a civil right. I do want to make clear that at this point, the board has not taken any action around this. And it really would be helpful to hear from folks just like where, if this at all is something they want to pursue. I know one of the things that I have raised, and I think is actually just really important to our work in general, is what are we even considering high quality education? Because at this juncture, I'm not so sure that we as a city have a shared vision, definition around that. And so I love the idea of guaranteeing every young person a high quality education. I am less moved by the idea about a right to something that doesn't mean anything. And so I want us to take a step back and have what I think is a much needed conversation around quality in this city. Because I think that is the thing I've heard from parents, from families, but also, young people who have gone through our system around what they need to be prepared for and what we need to be able to provide to young people in our own communities. And so just would love to hear feedback around that. If not tonight, then folks can always reach me. Happy to put my email in the chat. I also do have a state board phone number, but I don't have it memorized. I'll go get my little Post-it with it on there. It does have the new 771 area code. That is a DC area code. It is not out of town. Don't judge me. I hate the fact that it's not 202, but we just gonna go with it. At our last meeting, we did vote on a couple things. So one, we voted on a resolution that one of our young people put forth, Representative Ting. He is his basis. He also is involved in youth and government. He brought to our attention that, and this was true when I was in school, in order to take any of the advanced math courses, you do have to purchase a graphing calculator. And not every student can afford a graphing calculator. And so that's something that should be provided to students if we're going to expect every student to have the opportunity to go into advanced math classes. And so we passed a resolution supporting that. It was very much a youth-led initiative. Really proud of our youth representatives and our larger student advisory committee who continue to raise issues and encourage us to act on things that are responsive to young people. So we did unanimously pass that resolution. We also passed a resolution which came out of the working group around state board. I think we're calling it authority now, but has 3 recommendations operationalizes, 3 of the recommendations from the governance report that we worked on be my first 2 years on the state board. Those 3 are the following. One would be to give the state board great weight. For folks who are like, what is great weight? Great weight is essentially the idea that if we as a state board say, hey, I don't know, OSSE, we really like the high school graduation requirements, but we think that there should be an economics course. It would mean that OSSE would have to respond to us. And this does not imply OSSE does not respond to us. I'm just giving some examples. I'm making up things on the fly, so I don't want to imply, but OSSE will have to be required to respond to us. And if they say, no, we don't agree with you, they would have to explain why. These things are important for transparency, to make sure that we can have a dialogue. A lot of times as community members, and in our case as elected representatives, we do a lot of work to say, hey, this is what our community needs, and it's sent up and it's just ignored. And there's no justification for why something can or can't happen. And so it would not require folks have to agree, but it does require that folks have to respond and explain their stance. So that's the first thing. Two, ANCs currently do have great weight, but even though, we represent entire wards, we do not have great weight. ANC represents about 2,000 people. I represent upwards of 80,000 people, and I don't even have the same powers, if you will. So that gives you a sense of what we're asking for. Two, it would be to be able to initiate policy. I use the financial literacy standards as an example here. So we heard from community members for a very long time that financial literacy was something folks wanted to see. Fortunately, we were able, and we had some movement from the council and other things, so we were able to get together with OSSE and finally, get some agreement about something that's been on the plate. But if we had the ability to initiate policy, the board could say, hey, look, we're hearing from folks. Let's put this on the docket. Maybe not like immediately, like it's not just a poof magic wand to-do list, but it would actually be part of, we have outlined like a timeline, a process, all the things, so that OSSE would be able to say, all right, look, we have capacity for this. We can have a public dialogue and we can have a public and transparent way to say, here's what's coming next. And there will be a way for the public via the state board to also put things in the queue. So that's the second thing. What am I forgetting? There's a third. The third thing is around data requests. So there have been a few times that we've requested data, things like, hey, like we want to know how many schools have a nurse. Hey, like we want to know what's going on with buses. And it essentially it will allow the state board to actually like request the data, and people have to fulfill those data requests in a timely fashion. And so we passed a resolution around that. I'll expect at the next meeting for there also to be a vote around transmitting legislation to council around that. And again, those things just like have already been accepted as part of the recommendations, but we didn't talk about like the how and the timeline. And so if folks can go to our website to see what those things look like, I'm always happy to talk with folks around this work. And those are really the big things that are both before the board and we have passed more recently. Always happy to connect with folks on Ward 7 issues specifically. I am starting to do some cleanups around schools with some of the ANCs because I have noticed a lot less care in our community to the point that like I have a couple schools that are really close to me. Like I don't even want to walk my dog some days because people are just throwing glass and all the different things. And so hoping to get a couple of, starting in April, just doing some spring cleanups around school because we don't want our kids feeling like the community doesn't care about them in their school. And I think that's kind of low hanging things we can say to our kids that like, we care about you too. So looking forward to partner. I think the first one's probably going to be in 7C, but trying to do at least one in each ANC area before, the spring is up.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Thompson. I will say in terms of the education as a civil right, Elizabeth asked the question, that she didn't understand the movement. We have a lot of questions. And in fact, we put out a list of questions. The statement around our list of questions is in the chat. So, and we have requested a open kind of vetting and forum with some lawyers who really understand education and law, and really understand the civil rights law. And so that we can understand what it will yield us, if anything, what will be the intended and unintended consequences from such a movement. So we're paying close attention to that, and we will continue to ask questions along that way. So with that being said, I really want to say thank you. And are there any questions from anyone for our rep?
And Elizabeth, I will say, I do think it's important, like, for people to ask questions and say, like, hey, I want to better understand, or like, here's what I think you mean. One of the things that I think is really important at this time in particular, is folks like being plain with language and saying what they mean. So, you know, as we all know, the federal administration has cracked down on words like diversity, equity, inclusion, and variations of those. And for me, that doesn't mean that that work has to stop, but it actually is an interesting challenge for us to just say what we mean. Like, don't just say to me, you want education equity. Say to me that, you know, you want every kid to be prepared to have a good career, and that looks like this. Say to me, you know, if I want economic mobility, equity, you know, equity for everybody, that means that, you know, folks should be able to have a livable wage, and like that, like just real words. And that for like real words and real work, I think is the challenge we're going to have as a city. And right now, what is being proposed before the board is a resolution, which is posted. And so happy to, like, it's not a secret. And honestly, there haven't been a bunch. I think sometimes people get the impression that there's been a bunch of like work behind the scenes that has happened that folks haven't seen. That's not true. Everything that that we had a panel, which is public. And then there was a working group, but the working group didn't meet a bunch. And so the resolution as proposed is public, but it essentially is saying that DC should have education as a civil right, but it does not define what education as a civil right is. It also does not describe, if DC doesn't do it, then what would be the consequences. And so if you're, I just want to say that because I don't want to imply those things have been, those decisions have been made, or there's a place that, or it's like you're missing something. Literally, what is in the resolution is what is before the board, and nothing else. And so I think what I have been encouraging is to be able to say more about what it is, why it is, like what the hope is, because I think we have a lot of real work to do. And I don't doubt that we all as colleagues share the same values around what's good for young people, but I think we have to get a lot more concrete in our words and our work. And that's just what this moment calls for.
I think Elizabeth has an actual question. Elizabeth, you want to ask a question?
No, I just wanted to respond if that's okay. And it's just okay for me, you know, I understand I process things different and I receive things different. I view things differently. But when I hear education as a civil right, it makes me feel like, okay, are we now going to blame teachers because kids aren't getting the grades that we want? Like, it sounds like we're passing the buck of accountability to individuals as opposed to systems. And that is dangerous. And I'm not pro either way. I'm not pro charter. I'm not pro public. I believe in choice. I believe but to me, that is the things that I'm concerned about. What are the implications? Because we know as Black and Brown people, intention never meets us. Whatever it is that you think that you're doing, the opposite of that is going to be reflected on our population. So that is where my reservation comes from when it comes to this. And so I'm like, what are you, to your point, you use real words, like say what you're trying to do so that we have transparency and we understand that we're on the same page, because continuing to pass the buck of responsibility, I'm not interested in that.
Yeah,
Well,
I really appreciate that feedback.
yeah.
Also happy to pass that on. I think and again, like part of what the challenges with this conversation at this point is we are being asked to pass a resolution, but none of that has been defined. And so I can't say to you, yes, like we've thought that all the way through. Yes, we have had that conversation more fully. I think that we've had some testimony from folks around unintended consequences and a fear of unintended consequences, but a lot of it has centered around the political climate. Less of it, honestly, and I think this is actually more importantly, has centered around what does that mean just for children and families, right? Like, what are we guaranteeing the first? And I think that's actually, in my opinion, the more important point. Last thing I'll say on this, unless somebody has a question, but what I have heard, which I can appreciate from Representative Patterson about this, is around, we have kids who have been from communities who have been persistently not proficient. I do believe proficiency matters. Like, it can't just always be growth, in my opinion, because if I think about any kid that I know and love, whether it's my sisters or my cousins or, whoever, like when they graduate from high school, I expect them to have everything they need to be successful at the next step. That's proficiency. If they still growing on that way when they graduate, we have done them wrong. And so I do think proficiency matters. What I worry about is we need to have a conversation around what are we doing to make sure students reach proficiency. That's why the work around literacy is important. That's why the work around math is important. Like, it's not good enough to just say, okay, we're going to write something and have a statement. And people are going to be rewarded for a statement, because a lot of the states with the worst proficiency already have education as a civil right as part of their state constitutions. We're talking like Alabama, Mississippi. Like, so the words themselves don't mean anything. But they could mean things if it means that folks are going to, like, whether it's the Trump administration or others, say, all right, let's attack DC for this, or use it to push through things that we don't want, because we don't have certain protections, because we're not a state, as we're actively seeing right now. And so I do think that folks should get feedback, not just because they want something or they don't want something, but it also helps us learn as representatives what folks care about. And even in all of the political chaos and this crazy climate, I do think it still matters for folks to say, hey, this is what I care about for my kid, my school, my teacher in DC right now. And don't lose that as the priority.
So to that end, Elizabeth, I hope you will read the statement that we put in the chat, and stay engaged with us on this conversation. Many of the questions that you raised, we raised, and we also like to examine things from a systemic lens. I want to thank you, Representative Thompson, for bringing those updates. I want to encourage members of the community to sign up for a committee. We have 5 committees: budget and finance, programs, communications and outreach, legislative, and membership. And then we have, are there any announcements that anyone would like to make? Okay, well, these are the various ways that you can stay in contact with us. Please watch any meetings that you've missed on YouTube, share it with others, share the link to register for our meetings. I will say that next month, we will be bringing the Deputy Mayor of Education, Paul Kine, to give us an update on the budget. as it relates to schools. We're working out the date because right now he is scheduled to be in a budget hearing on the date of our meeting. But we definitely will be bringing that as soon as that'll be hot off the press, what is happening with the budget. We know that this is going to be an incredibly difficult budget year. And so we need to be really on top of that. We need to be making prioritizations. There's a lot of cuts that could potentially happen to children and families, and we need to be very prudent on what we're putting first, to make sure that our families and our children have, all the things they need to be successful in school, because it's not just about schools. Schools are a part of the ecosystem, but they're not the only thing that impacts education. In May, we will hear from the DC Public School Charter School Board. They have a new accountability system called Aspire. And we will hear about their new system, what the changes are, and we'll learn all about that. And then again, in June, we will install the new officers, the vice chair, the recordings secretary, and the parliamentarian. So with that, we are at time, and I appreciate you. Please look for the newsletter that will have a link to the recording, a link to the statement, and other gems from this meeting, as well as the PowerPoint from OSSE around high school graduation. So thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.